and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 516. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Sellner.
Hello.
Mark Augustiniak.
Hey.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. This week, it's our second console ranking. We'll break down the rules, we'll break down the results of last time, all of that right after this. For everyone joining us for the first time, welcome and thank you for hanging out with us. If you heard about us on the Insert Credit Show, we're happy you checked us out. If you didn't, you should go check out the Insert Credit Show. They're great, and we're borrowing their 6-minute time limit for today's episode. Matt, which console did you never own but always wanted?
Oh, I would... GameCube or Xbox is a toss-up.
Mark?
Genesis.
Good answer. Mine was Xbox. I wrote these questions, and then right before we sat down to record, I gut reaction read them again, and then wrote Xbox was the answer. Which console, Mark, were other people excited about, but you never cared about?
I have like two answers. I always have two answers for things.
Hit 'em.
The Wii at first.
Oh,
I was like, I was excited about it in general, but it costed me waiting for Twilight Princess on GameCube, so I'm a little bitter towards it. And then I did hate it for a while once I got a 360, but then I learned to love it later. Before that, I wouldn't say I didn't. Wasn't really any negative emotions behind it. It just wasn't on my radar. But the PlayStation 1. Because I was a Nintendo household, man. I was all about the 64, and like I played PlayStation games, but like it never occurred to me like I need to get this.
Explains our current ranking of 10 consoles as they are now. Matt, what about you? Which console did people love that you did not understand?
For sure, the Wii, until like I got my hands. I played it at a friend's house like around Christmas or something. I then like played Wii, like bowled, and it kind of clicked. But I still don't like fawn over the Wii as much as others do, I think.
Do you think that's because you were right in that sweet spot at that time of too cool? Because I feel like had I been a few years younger, I would have been too cool for the Wii.
I don't know. I didn't like the idea of motion. I can tell you that. I don't know if that fits into the too cool bill or not. I don't remember my exact attitude.
I feel like there's that sweet spot of like, I remember who I was, but by the time the Wii hit, I was 17, so I was just over being too cool.
And then the Xbox One.
Oh, yeah. More on that.
That entire launch cycle was bad. Or sorry, the entire ramp to launch was bad.
Well, hold on. Were people excited about that? That was the key part of this question.
The only thing I was half excited about was the Master Chief Collection, and that came out and took a shit, so...
You know what, Matt? I think you just refreshed my memory. Let's edit PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 3.
See, when you were struggling initially, Mark, I thought you were going to say PlayStation 4, because that was kind of also... You've always had an antagonistic relationship with...
I love PS2.
Yes.
PS2 is my favorite. 3, it just aesthetically just was not pleasing, and then PlayStation Home was sad. And then I just didn't care.
Define sad. Hold on.
They killed it. That's what. There was no support. That's what was sad about it. They fucking Miitomo'd it.
I love all the memories that we're gonna talk, or we did talk about PS3 last time. I'm sure we'll talk about it some more. But my memories of PlayStation 3 are so many things, and rarely do I think of PlayStation Home. Yet every time, and I just listened to our episode 490 where we ranked PS3, and Mark, you were right there championing PlayStation Home. I
Not much has
will
changed.
say my answer real quick and we'll move on to our final icebreaker question. I never cared about the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I've come to change, thanks to the Wii, which you both hated, I learned to love the
first.
Super Nintendo Entertainment System through Virtual Console. And now I've, really taken time to go back and play the best and the rest of that library. Last question. Which console did you own, but you wish you had its contemporary instead? So I think for me, I might trade having a Nintendo 64 for a Sega Saturn. Which sounds crazy. But I think about the handful of great experiences on N64 that I had then. They were probably pretty pivotal. But in hindsight, I really wish I had experienced the Saturn. Then, at least.
This is very hard because my lineage is remember, I'm a little bit older, a little bit younger, so my lineage starts at a Super Nintendo, and then it quickly goes PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and now a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe an N64 instead of PlayStation 1.
Wrong answer, but all right, okay.
I'm just thinking about No Mercy. There's like some things on 64 that I don't know ever came to PlayStation I would spend a lot of time with as a kid.
Yeah. The grass is always greener. Mark, how about you? Is there any?
So eventually I did get a PlayStation 1. But I would have traded it for a Dreamcast.
Yeah. I thought a lot about Dreamcast, but then I'm like, well, if we call Dreamcast same in line with like PS2, I wouldn't trade the PS2 for Dreamcast.
No.
I know the Dreamcast is special, but
I mean, I still don't like Dreamcast's controller. It hasn't aged well, but I do like that system.
well, we're going to talk about a lot of these consoles today. I apologize to all fans of the Mega Duck because we will not be featuring the Mega Duck. We are reaching out there though, so we created a list of 30 video game consoles. Over the course of season 11, we're ranking them based on each console's respective library, its controller or input device, the exclusive titles, the overall design, and just what we think and feel around these consoles. Our last ranking episode in January, episode 490, resulted in the current ranking of these 10 consoles. Would you two like to hear them in reverse order, 10 to 1 or 1 to 10? How do you let's go 10 to 1. I'm not even going to give you the choice. Number 10.
Great.
Currently on the list. Game Boy. Number 9. PlayStation Vita. Number 8. Game Boy Color. Number 7. Home to the PlayStation Home, PlayStation 3. Number 6, PlayStation Portable, or the PSP. Number 5, Wii. Number 4, Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Number 3, Xbox. Number 2, PlayStation. And number 1, Nintendo 3DS. I have a quote here. I wrote down what we said last time. I believe I said, in 6 months, we're going to look at this and wonder why we did this. Mark said, if we had more than 6 minutes, we might have given these different rankings. And Matt said, well, we gave the 3DS 9 minutes because after the timer went off for the 3DS, we continued to just keep talking about it to the point where it ended up in first place.
Rightfully so.
I don't know. Hearing that list, are there any standouts to you two that I think the PlayStation should be where the 3DS is, but maybe that's just me. And we're not going to change it. I'm not going to move anything around. The list is the list. We did it. We made the decisions. I'm not going to.
Street Pass, baby.
Yeah, I guess. Pocket Station, though. You know what I'm saying?
Homebrew PlayStation on your 3DS. I don't know.
I vaguely remember talking about all the stuff, so I think it makes sense with what I remember. Insert
It's
Vita Lives joke probably that I
should we
made 5
listen-
times.
Should we listen to an episode within an episode? Has anyone done that before?
yeah, we'll pipe that in now.
We'll
This
just place
episode
it.
just
I'm
becomes.
not even going to say the obvious joke.
Please don't. I retract.
Well, I can
everything.
promise you this episode will be quite different than the last one because we're going to talk about some consoles that the three of us never actually owned or spent a lot of time with outside of emulation or well past their prime sort of playing. Anything we talk about today, we're going to add into our existing list. We're going to spend 6 minutes per console, talk about its legacy. We'll grant it a ranking, and then move on to the next one. So our first console, with 6 minutes on the board, the Sega Master System. First released in Japan on October 10th, 1985, followed by a September 1986 release. We've talked about this before, and I think even last console ranking episode we mentioned that I believe both of your cousins, you might have the same cousin we determined, both of your cousins had Master Systems, so you guys had some sort of exposure to Master System. Or was it
Genesis.
Genesis.
Got it.
Close enough.
So has anyone here actually held a legit Master System controller?
Probably didn't
No.
even realize it.
I think I'm where Mark is. Like, I feel like maybe a cousin had this, maybe a neighbor had one, and I maybe played one, but otherwise it's been using a Nintendo Entertainment System styled controller via emulation to play these things. Or something else, but if I'm trying to simulate it as close as possible.
Yeah, this one was under my radar for sure.
Yeah,
I didn't know it existed. Like, I thought Genesis was the first console Sega ever made.
Yeah, I did too. I remember being pretty young, finding out that the Master System was a thing, but I didn't understand it at all. It did not make sense. It was like, no, the NES is what came before the Genesis. That was.
And then, like, the regional naming, so, like, Mega Drive, I would confuse with Master System.
That too. Also, the Master System is technically the SG-1000 Mark III. The SG-1000 came out when the Famicom came out, July 15th, 1983, so happy birthday. But then the third iteration of that console became the Master System in America, which here we are. My first exposure to playing these titles, probably Virtual Console, outside of other emulation, but there were some titles released on Virtual Console. And then re-releases of these games in other formats drew me into the platform. I think now I have played enough Master System that I can, for me, confidently align it alongside the NES in terms of its library, its ideas. I think the NES library remains more iconic, not just for me, but I think as a gaming, populace, I think we all look back on the NES with a lot more heart or, I don't know, adoration. But I think the Master System holds up. There's a ton of great games on Master System. The things that stand out, we'll talk about the launch lineup, talk about a couple of the games here in our next 3 minutes as we're kind of speed running this, but there's a lot of ports of Genesis games. This is something that stood out to me about the Master System's library and exploring it. But it's not direct ports. Like, if you play Sonic the Hedgehog 1, it is not the same Sonic the Hedgehog just, demade. It is a complete reimagination by a different company. In this case, it was Ancient, of Sonic the Hedgehog. So you're playing as Sonic, you're moving through a world that looks like Green Hill Zone, but you're not playing the exact same stage. It's kind of better than the first Sonic game in its own way. which maybe is blasphemous, but I don't know. There's a
Well, you
port
gotta
of
see that-
Fantasy Zone. Yeah,
You got to see that evolution of consoles anyway, because the developers know how to milk every single piece of the hardware, and the new hardware gets feature stripped down. I think like Madden's from console to console in that overlap period.
yeah, that is a great point. You have people that are like readying for the Genesis, but taking that expertise backwards a bit, because the Master System ended up having a long tail in North America and other regions. But yeah, that kind of lent to some more interesting games. I think one of the shining stars, pun intended, is Phantasy Star. I think that's still, I mean, that birthed a whole series and a franchise that is still continuing today. Shout out to a friend of the show, Alex Fraioli's guide on GameFAQs that is still out there, because it's the only way I've been able to play through as much of that game as I have. But I think the Switch port of that game is probably the best way to play it, because you have an on-screen map and a lot of that. But because we've only got a minute left before we've got to rank it, I'm going to just shout some titles at you guys, and you can shout back. Master of Darkness is a Castlevania-like game that's really good. Zillion 2 are kind of weird Metroid-style things. The Wonder Boy trilogy. Ghost House, but only for the cart art, because it's just that plain black and white grid Master System art, but it just has bats on it, which is really good. The system launched with Choplifter, Fantasy Zone, Ghost House, Hang On, My Hero, and Teddy Boy. I think it's a great system that everyone should play. The end. There's also like a lot of the major, I don't know, there's a lot of major third-party things that hit Master System that came from NES or have a similar DNA that are really good too. 5 seconds. Final words?
I think you nailed it.
I saw last day.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that, the Power Strike series, all of those are top notch. I was saving more of my talk on those for Game Gear, but you're right. They also, the good folks over at Compile had a lot of Master System releases. All right. For the ranking, where do we place Master System against our list? I'm going to throw one out there because I
think you've touched it the most too. That certainly helps. So you throw out the initial pitch here.
Then my first pitch is going to be, no offense to the Master System, I think right betwixt PlayStation Vita and Game Boy, making it the new number 9.
The Vita lives.
Yeah, it's not better than Vita.
Better than Game Boy?
I'm good putting Game Boy over it as well. There's plenty of things that I think are going to go below Game Boy as we continue today.
Well, that could be fine. There's other Game Boys that are higher up on there.
Yeah, we got the Game Boy Color up there and
Yeah.
some other stuff.
I
All
just
right,
know
so
the
I'm
Game
gonna place
Boy.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Game Boy library better, but I don't know that necessarily means that library is better either, though. You know, I think an experience here is not helping me.
I would say Game Boy has a better library, but it's fine. It's just regular Game Boy. Master System can do a little more, obviously.
We are on to the next platform. Released December 22nd, 1995 in Japan, August 14th, 1995 in North America. That's right. Start the clock. It's time to talk about Virtual Boy.
Hell yeah.
Red.
Yes, Red. Have you guys played a Virtual Boy?
No.
I have.
Did you play it in a personal manner? Did you play it where did your Virtual Boy playing experience happen?
First experience was at a Toys R Us.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know what I was doing. Because that controller, if I remember correctly, has 2 D-pads, doesn't it?
2 D-pads.
And I was like,
on the outer
what?
wings for some reason.
I was like,
sticks, but
double
not sticks.
D-pads. Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this? And then later in life, a friend's father got it from a yard sale, and I played it then.
His dad got it, like, just to have it for himself, or he got it for a friend?
He has a thing of, like, going to yard sales and then finding stuff and then reselling it on eBay.
I see. I got you.
That was, like, his thing. And I tried it then, and I don't think it's that bad in a short period of time.
No, I think it got a bad rap. Obviously, it didn't last long commercially.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as I think the memes of it make it seem.
Missed opportunity to emulate that stuff on 3DS.
Fully. That is one of the key things I have written down in my notes for this. I don't understand it. It has a really fascinating history. I think it's worth checking out Jeremy Parish's Virtual Boy series on his YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
The one fact that stands out above all is that the only reason it's red is because that was the cheapest color thing to, like, how it could have been anything. It could have been a Game Boy. It's such a lost potential. I played a model on display at my local KB Toys and played Mario's Tennis. And I remember I did a few rounds, and then I felt like the Virtual Boy was best left in my memory as a thing I played with once in a KB Toys at that time. Now you can play those games via an emulator in grayscale, and you can really see kind of the potential for what the platform could have been and what those games were. It's weird that there's a Shin Megami Tensei game on there. Jack Bros. It doesn't make any sense. It launched with Galactic Pinball, Mario's Tennis, Red Alarm, and Tellero Boxer. There's a bowling game on there. There's Wario's Woods. There's not many. I mean, we could literally list them all out in just a few seconds. There's only 22 games released for the Virtual Boy, but
the Wario game wasn't bad.
No, it was good, yeah. And
their remake of Mario Brothers.
Yes.
Or whatever. Like, I like the visuals on that one.
3D Tetris is not good. I tried, or V Tetris, I think.
Yeah. Didn't care for that one, for sure.
No. But it's a cool concept. Like, the idea of having it, like, actually, now I'm thinking about it, I would love to have one on this desk right now, just to pop in. But yeah, the controller's weird. I love every episode I get at least one facepalm out of Matt from something I say. So that's we checked that box. Yeah, it still baffles me that Nintendo didn't put that out on 3DS. That was like so easy. Just right there. Right there.
Yep.
We're early. We've still got 2.5 minutes.
That's pretty much a goddamn metaphor for the platform.
Yeah, it's interesting to know at least that if you emulate, obviously you're not emulating the 3D capabilities or whatever, right? Like, it's cool to know that the games are still playable.
Yeah.
On a 2D, screen, and it doesn't really hinder the experience that much. Like, which kind of sucks for the Virtual Boy as a gimmick, because it's like, you don't need this to enjoy these games, but at the same time, it's cool that you're able to still enjoy these games without it. It's kind of it's a weird trade-off.
It's a neat idea, and it was supposed to be the sequel to the Game Boy. It's why it has the name in it. Like, they really did have ambition for this.
The commercials were kind of creepy, right? Do you remember one of them?
That, yeah.
Or like a magazine. I forget. I don't know if it was a magazine ad or if it was a commercial where it was kind of like a weird like Terminator monster chasing somebody in like a post-apocalyptic like setting, and like the ground's cracking and shit. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but
no, I remember that.
There's something about
sounds like any 90s video game commercial.
It was a very, very American commercial for sure. Everything had to be edgy.
Caveman, or right? Wasn't there like a caveman commercial with him wearing one or something?
Maybe
or
that's
not commercial, magazine ad.
Maybe.
All right, I'm gonna stop the clock for us.
That's
and
fine.
We can rank this.
Donate those minutes to other things.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna need it for making sure the 3DS stays at the top.
So does at the
Is
bottom
this-
of the list, right?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna.
I feel like out of respect, it has to be there. Like this was destined. Like in like
Respect, it has to be last.
yeah. I mean, hey, every place has their
Yeah.
role, and to keep the balance, it has to remain there. Yes.
But honestly, there's not. It's a really cool thing. There's not a
But
huge
I mean it
library.
out of love.
It was
not-
discontinued within a year. It just there's not much to say on Virtual Boy. It's cool. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna drag it. I'm not gonna be that person. There's plenty of cool
I mean,
people out
Nintendo
there
was
that.
definitely trying new things.
Right. That's the thing you have
You
to.
can't
remember
compare that to
is
anything
that-
else at that time, really.
No. We're still trying to get VR right now. You know.
We're getting there.
Yes. Well, while the Game Boy had its sequel in the Virtual Boy, it found its competition on October 6th, 1990 in Japan, April 1991 in North America, starting the timer on our conversation around Sega Game Gear.
Okay.
To me, this was a cool platform that I never owned. I think I held one once at a friend's house and probably wanted one, but not enough to ever like push for it or ask for it. Eventually I was gifted a Sega Nomad, and there wasn't anything much cooler than being able to play those games what go on the TV now in my hand. Imagine that. Today, I love the Game Gear's library as a combination of its original titles, but also efforts to bring Master System and Genesis games to a new home. I think there's a lot of great ideas captured in a small format that are worth playing today. The hardware itself is bulky in a way that I think feels comfortable. And there's some new modifications you can make to it that really make a special little platform out of a Game Gear. I highly recommend Macho Nacho's videos out there on the YouTube on Game Gear mods, so you can see some of the cooler things you can do with cases and screens and whatnot. And unlike Virtual Boy, it was very nice to see some of these games available on the 3DS Virtual Console. Which, Mark, I think that's where you had a lot of your exposure to Game Gear, right? Or did you have one?
Oh, I had 3.
What?
Somebody at a flea market just sold a box of shit, and there was 3 Game Gears in there. One of them had its own like big rechargeable battery support that made it even bulkier. I had a screen magnifier. I had headphones for it. I actually bought a game for it from Toys R Us. That was always Toys R Us. Power Rangers the movie. That was one of my favorite games on there.
Oh,
I had Tails Adventure. I had Sonic Chaos. I had some asymmetrical shooter game where you had to keep getting key cards, and it was the same track in every level. I forget the name of it right now, but I enjoyed it. I had James Pond, a weird platformer. Some puzzle game. It might have been something similar to Columns. If it wasn't, maybe it was Columns.
They did port Columns to that, so it could have very well been.
Yeah, just had a bunch of stuff for it, and I hate that it took like 6 AA batteries.
Wasn't Collins the packed-in game?
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah,
Maybe?
for a certain because they needed to compete with the Game Boy
Tetris.
pack-in, right? Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
3D, not to be confused with 3D Tetris on the virtual.
Yes.
And I think I had this before I owned a Game Boy. And it was cool, but I also got over it really quick at the same time. But at the time, I was so enamored with it. I brought it with me everywhere.
It's a cool. I still think it's rad. You know, back then,
Yeah.
especially compared to Game Boy, it had a color screen. It had Sonic, which was cool. Yeah, Matt.
The visuals weren't bad.
Another one I don't have
No,
much
yeah.
experience with. I don't think I've ever held one either. But yeah, like in that time, right? Like the color screen is great, but it's also one of those things where I don't know if I think I begged my mom for the power adapter accessory or the rechargeable battery pack accessory thing that they have. Because it ate up the batteries. It's 6 AA's.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that thing is a murder weapon. Like,
So, I get, for its technology, there is a payoff for it.
It launched with Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, Columns, G-Lock, Air Battle, Psychic World, Revenge of Dancon, and Super Monaco GP. I should also mention there was a Master Gear converter that let you play your Master System games on the Game Gear. It is unwieldy and huge, but super cool. Today, I mean, this is a side note, but there's actually someone has made a thing that lets you go backwards and play Game Gear games via Master System. And they, I think, have made it work so that you can play the Master System converter on Genesis to play your... anyway. There's so many ways to play these games anywhere you want to play them. I don't know why I never got one, but it sure is cool, and I like playing the games now. I think Dragon Crystal stands out as something, as a Fatal Labyrinth companion. Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble is pretty good. I like the Adventures of Batman and Robin and the ports of Streets of Rage 2 and Gunstar Heroes. But I think my favorite of the platform is probably GG Aleste 2. Of course, I played that via the Aleste collection. And I guess technically there's 3, which was a Game Gear game released in 2020, if that counts. But we'll leave it at that.
I'd be remiss to not shout out the TV antenna adapter.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff like that in that era. All those little things. We were always trying to get TV in places it wasn't supposed to be. And
dude, like, my brother had a portable TV, like a handheld TV, and I stole that and took it with me to school all the time. Had its own antenna you would pull out and everything. It took like 4 AA's or something.
Why not?
I think it was cool.
Sega Genesis into it.
That and the Coca-Cola edition.
Dude, the Coca-Cola edition of the Game Gear is hot, and I want you to keep that image in your mind as we rank it.
Go back to the rank. Well, it's above the Virtual Boy.
I'd put it above Master System.
I'm right above Master System, but not above Vita.
Oh no, that's
happy with that.
That's crazy.
We're all good with. We're all right aligned.
Master System doesn't have Power Rangers, the movie, unless I'm mistaken, and it does.
Not like it does on the Game Gear.
Watch, that game actually sucked now. It's just my memories are just making it better.
I remember I had some fun. Well, I had some fun with that game on Game Boy. I don't know if it was any different though.
It probably was. That's just
how
it was
of those
back
games feel a little bit different than you remember, but 10 years after the Game Gear would make its way to North America, we would see the release of the Game Boy Advance on June 11th, 2001 in North America, March 21st, 2001 in Japan. Start the timer on Game Boy Advance talk. Mark, this is your jam.
Oh, yeah. This is my favorite Game Boy out of all of them. Well, does this include the SP, or are we talking about just basic?
I think it's fair to include the SP.
Yeah, when we're talking about these consoles, like we talk about, we kind of rushed past form factor on these first few, but because there weren't much to talk about outside of the Coca-Cola edition. But this runs Game Boy Advance. They were releasing games on that until 2008, so anything in that lifespan.
Do we count the DS?
No, that's a separate platform. That's a different pillar, if you will.
But it plays GBA on the bottom screen.
It's true.
Okay. Okay. Well then, yeah. Well, I loved both models of the GBA. SP was a little.
All 3. Excuse me. The micro would like a word.
I don't want to acknowledge micro.
I will always acknowledge the micro.
I like the faceplates, but that's too small.
It's perfect.
But yeah,
no, the original is my favorite form factor of it, though. The SP, definitely the backlit, the clamshell, being able to just but
It was just hard to grip depending on your hands.
Yeah.
Depending on what you were playing, if you use shoulder buttons a lot, but yeah, I loved traveling around with that little thing so much. I was a day one with this, if I remember correctly. I remember getting Mega Man Zero, Mega Man Battle Network. It's funny because actually no, I wasn't day one with it. I think I was like month one with it. So I remember emulating a lot of games first. And I was like, all right, I want these for real because these ran like crap on my computer. But I knew enough to where I actually wanted them, and I think I had to wait till a birthday or something to get them. But yeah, just connecting it to the GameCube, that versatility, the backwards compatibility that it had. And then like I even had the e-reader for it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's a very novelty thing that not a lot of people messed with, and rightfully so.
But I admit that's just like of the era of all this technology. Like you talk about the 90s with the weird TV things and TV tuners and stuff. Like this era is definitely like, how can we cross media? How can we get different things shoved into these different devices while they're on
then
the go?
Like the support that it would get for like, because you know it's a 32-bit console or handheld, whatever, and like you know they were porting 16-bit games to it, but resing them up or adding more to them, like this Final Fantasy games or you know, it's the older Mario games were getting, you know, revamped or however. And so like it was cool to have that like weird, or some were just straight up ports, like a Mega Man and Bass. Like my first time was playing on Game Boy Advance. I didn't know that was a Super Nintendo game before that.
Yeah, there were a lot of the like SNES games just made their way over, but also the NES Classic series was great. Like they were really important in an era where playing our old games was less simplified than it is now. Like now it's so easy to play any of those games, and yeah, it like
it's cool that it brought over ports and stuff like that, but the new stuff too, like the Aria of Sorrow is so good.
Yes.
You got WarioWare introduced on this platform. Yes. That first game, I never played Twisted, but that first game's great. I know Twisted's good. You know, you have your, I think Zelda Four Swords is on this one, right?
It was together with A Link to the Past.
I'm gonna throw this out there. A very good port of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is on this.
Yeah, dude. That was their
and then the RPG that's always escaped me that I always wanted to play, strangely enough, because it was the first time I saw a Game Boy Advance in motion. Golden Sun is on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, yes.
That was our foray into Fire Emblem in the US.
It was
outside of Smash. Yeah, there was just
it's loaded.
A lot of good RPGs on that, and a lot of good Sonic Advance. That series, probably one of my top favorite Sonic series of all time on GBA.
And it's backwards compatible, right? With all of Game Boy, yeah. On top of that, merge those.
Best Game Boy. It's just the best Game Boy.
We've got 45 seconds. I'm gonna just shout some more game titles out there. Mother 3, Pinball of the Dead, which is a 3D pinball game in the House of the Dead universe. Rhythm Tengoku, or Rhythm Heaven, as we'd later get it here eventually. The color options of this thing, like the launch colors that kind of mirrored the GameCube stuff. But Atomic I also Purple. Really love the simplicity of D-pad, 2 buttons, 2 triggers. It just feels so good in the hand. This is a really fantastic console. Yeah, great library.
The clicky of the shoulder buttons.
It's so good.
Did the SP have the clickiness too? I knew it was like more bald, but okay. Yeah. I always had the first edition. I never had an SP.
And there's time. I will also say you can play Final Fantasy 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and Tactics Advance on this. Like, it's stupid how many...
So much support for this system.
Also, don't forget No Rules Get Fat.
And don't forget Boktai.
And Zone of the Enders, The Fist of Mars.
Okay, all right, we're going into minute 7 now.
All
now,
right.
We're using some Virtual Boy time. We're okay.
We're borrowing from the Virtual Boy. It doesn't.
No, that
mind.
should be we gotta be equal-minded. Every game should get a little piece of that action.
It died
Or,
so that
every
Game Boy
system.
Advance could live in 2 ways today. All right, where do we fall with Game Boy Advance?
Where's
I think I
Game Boy
know my
Color
number.
at?
Game Boy Color is, I don't know how many numbers are on this list. Game Boy Color is number 8.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I need to see the list. Sorry.
Yeah, we're getting to that territory like our regular list where like I could put it above something lower, and then I look higher and like, well, there's a couple things, but I
know.
think it's better than that. I mean, I think library alone gets it at least to number 3 for me above the Xbox, below PlayStation and 3DS.
The problem is then it's so high above PSP, and I don't like where we have PSP. I'm with you. I think the Game Boy Advance is better than the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. But PSP should be higher than it is.
Okay, so like I could see the GBA being under PS3, honestly, but I do like it more than the Super Nintendo.
I think we all agree on that. Do we like it over Xbox?
I think the library's better.
It is a better library, but I think if you really were to ask me which one to really pick, I think I would play an Xbox. Just because of its capabilities. Just a controller and a TV, it just that just doesn't top the GBA.
This one's a really tough split. We're going to have to borrow a little bit more of this Virtual Boy time, I tell you what.
I'm just
I
saying.
mean, personally, I do like it more than Xbox, but I just feel like Xbox just... I don't know, man.
Xbox is a culture. I get the only knock I have against the GBA is it took the second rendition to get it right. It's my only knock against it, but I think like I could easily see
GBA
myself picking
best.
up 5 games right now that I can't even name 5 games on Xbox at this very second.
GBA is best on a DS Lite.
False. That original
false.
GBA is so good.
But okay, but you have to like mod it to get a backlit screen, unless you want to just be like this the whole time, like angled.
True. But no, form factor wise, I
And
love that. I like the DS
rechargeable
Lite,
battery.
but the DS Lite aspect of it, you just have a blank screen somewhere. I hate that part of it. I love the like just single screen GBA experience.
Well, just rip the top half off.
Could do that too. I think I do like this over Xbox. I like Xbox. But I think
Just like, how many GBA games are better than Halo?
a lot.
Aria of Sorrow.
Halo's dang good, dude, but I don't know, man. Mother 3 is better than Halo.
Enjoy your pixelated Pokemon episodes on your GBA cartridge while I
didn't
go watch
bring up
DVDs.
Pokemon because I didn't play them.
Yeah, I completely forgot about all the Pokemon stuff. And the video stuff, yeah. I'm putting it above
Yeah.
Xbox. Are we good
All right.
with that?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's where I want it.
I think on the whole, I think we...
Jet Set Radio Future's crying though. I'm just saying, you're making.
There's
forgot
a
about
Jet Set
that.
game on GBA and Choo Choo Rocket.
Play
Sega-
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. It's going to be all right.
Also, wait, Mark.
you
Sonic
would rather
Advance
play
1 through 3.
Yes, but Sonic Adventure exists, so I'd rather just play Sonic Adventure.
I don't know. I've seen Sonic Adventure played.
If you rather play Tony Hawk 2 on a GBA than a PlayStation.
I'm not.
I'd rather play
It's
Konami
not above
Crazy
PlayStation. Wait, we didn't put it above PlayStation. Why bring?
Oh, you're right. My bad. My B.
Oh yeah, no.
B.
PlayStation's not. No. Yeah, we're that one's locked.
Take it back.
I mean, maybe we'll find out what happens. Just 4 years after the Game Boy Advance launched, with the launch of Microsoft's second console, the Xbox 360, in North America on November 22nd, 2005. Let the timer begin.
Okay.
360, huh?
The 360. Real cool. But remember, there's a whole episode of that documentary thing that he did a couple years ago dedicated to the one issue with that console, and it is called The Red Ring of Death.
You mean the one that they fixed?
Eventually.
Hey, if we're including all versions in here, we're including the
I know, but by that time, the PlayStation 3 is $300, and I think I like the PlayStation 3 better as a console.
By that point,
that's not on the list yet.
All right,
I know, but
right to ranking.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think any
is this
kind
when
of
PS3 got rid of the BC?
I don't know, it's just a stigma with that console. I immediately think of Red Ring as soon as it's said, and I know so many friends that were affected by it and got frustrated with the brand of Xbox.
You know, another thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the stuff you had to do to make the 360 compatible, right? Like, it did not have HDMI at launch, did not have the hard drive at launch. You had to buy the wireless adapter separate. Like, there were a lot of those add-on things that they did get cost down pretty low early on, but you had to do all these other things to make it work. Granted, if they had gone the other way, it would have been just as laughably expensive as the PS3 was at the time, right? So, like, there's a lot of, it's not, no one did it right.
Well, hey, they picked HD. They picked HD DVDs. They chose wrong on that one.
That was a fun, yes. I remember being excited about PS3 because I had a PlayStation 2, I had a PlayStation, but the 360 came along and felt way too loud to ignore at the time. The emphasis on the device as a multimedia platform, its constant connectivity felt like the next step in video games. And I think it truly is that, right? Like, Matt, you mentioned Xbox being, kicking off Xbox Live, but like, this is when it was baked into the console. This is what the experience is going to be.
Is this your first major console that has like a focus on its initial UI? Like, I know the PlayStation 2 has a minor one, but this has the blades. This brings in all the additional apps and stuff with it. I
mean, Xbox kind of had that boot up dashboard thing, but yeah,
I think it's similar to PlayStation 2's.
Yeah, this was definitely that. It maybe wouldn't happen initially, but eventually you get the ability to connect and download Xbox Live Arcade titles, retro releases, demos, like the ability, I talked about it in our Darkness episode a few weeks back, but the ability to see a thing on TV and then go download a demo was revolutionary and like just a fun, cool thing that killed Blockbuster, but it made, new opportunities for playing and developing games, I think.
Other things killed Blockbuster, don't worry.
It was also like the first platform to support indie games like on like a big scale.
Yeah.
I mean, like I know the PSP and like PS3 had like its thing, but like they had a whole
Xbox
separate.
Did first.
Yeah, they had like separate like store just for that.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of games stuck on there, sadly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got the next evolution of Xbox Live here, and then we start to go into the library. Oh well, first of all, I'm going to talk about the controller. Xbox 360 controller is maybe my second favorite controller.
It's so good, dude. It's perfect size. It's great feel. I just pulled one out the other day to play some Bullet Witch on the PC, and it is.
Yeah, I think its only flaw is the D-pad. But other than that, I like that controller.
Yeah, but I don't think the D-pad's an issue on that platform because I don't think you're getting many platformer. I know you just said about Xbox Arcade, but probably a lot of them can play joystick.
Super Meat Boy without
fighting games fighting games are tough.
Yeah, fighting. Yeah, you needed to have that that 6-button thing that.
And I know a complaint at the time was the battery pack.
Yes.
That's still a complaint, but here we are 2 generations later.
Yeah. To be fair, the one I've got now is wired, so it's
better handled
achievements.
Now, but...
Can we talk about? Being a thing? Because
yes, the beginning of a terrible invention.
I mean, yeah, it's gotten way bad.
Terrible
now,
in the
like,
best way, though.
I mean, think about it. Like now, like you can't order food without getting an achievement. You're like, everything has baked these things into them, so it's kind of a nightmare. But
the introduction to their avatars, because they felt threatened by Nintendo for some reason with that. But they had like 1 versus 100. Like you had a live game.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
like a game show ass game, not just hey online shooter multiplayer live, but like
doing HQ.
there was
trivia
there was a
15 years
scheduled
earlier.
time to play the game. That was the only time you were available to play. Was in that window. You couldn't do it whenever you want.
We've got 30 seconds left.
The Halo Halo 3 and Reach.
Dude, Halo 3
Halo 3 Reach.
more than anything, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kind of the go-to preferred spot for multi-platforms too. Like Call of Duty is synonymous with Xbox, not PlayStation for me.
This
still,
is
actually
the Terminator 2 to Xbox's Terminator.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good analogy, I think.
Yeah.
Especially it's later iteration, like that Black 360 with like the built-in wireless internet
Yeah,
stuff.
like that
and-
third rendition gets it right. Because it had Elite and then that
time.
Slim.
Crackdown. Quake 4.
Crackdown 2.
Ridge Racer 6. Leave it at that. Also, that was when I got to relive Symphony of the Night for the first time when it hit. So let's just jot that down. Keep that in mind while we rank it. Matt, I think you nailed it earlier, though. I think this is our new number, whatever this is, right below PS3, right above Game Boy Color.
What?
Yeah, it's weird because I think I like this better than the Xbox, obviously, but like I don't know.
This shit should be number 2 or 1.
Hit me. I'm not opposed to. Our list is a hot mess. So
it is a
I'm
hot
good
mess
with making
because it could either
messier.
be 3 or 8, and have arguments go for both ways.
Like, I mean, it sucks that it took a little bit in its life to get to a good point, but like, that console to me is like up there in like my own personal like top 5. Like, it's up there with like whatever my favorites are, but I like it more than the 3DS.
Why do we have PlayStation 3 solo? What was the main argument? Was it price?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, that's spilt milk now.
I mean, it's
I think it's better than a regular Xbox, and
lost-
that's at 4.
It also lost the PS2 emulator over time.
Over time, it lost it almost immediately.
Yeah. I don't know. I forget why.
No, I mean, with the list of weight, I think it's better than the regular Xbox. I mean, it's the like you said, it's the Terminator 2 to, Xbox's Terminator, the Xbox being Terminator 1. I think
Is it better than Game Boy Advance?
Brr.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is because the Game Boy Advance little hand. And now, if it had a cable adapter cartridge, maybe we can argue multimedia. But
Yeah. I like it there. I don't think it goes higher than that on the list.
no,
Why would a PlayStation be better than the 360?
Every reason. The library, I think, is the big thing. I think the pure creativity of the PlayStation, the stuff that was coming out on that thing everywhere all the time by any number of people. I know there's a big emphasis on 360 on opening up for developers, but PlayStation did that with the Net Yorose console, allowing people to buy their own console and make games and publish games themselves for like a lot of the stuff that 360 is great at, PlayStation was doing a decade earlier. I think the foray into 3D graphics, the capability of like PlayStation was just innovation. That was the start of a generation, like fully.
Also,
I think the 360 is just as important of a milestone in terms of like online connectivity. Like that's the next jump, right? But like PlayStation is, I don't think you, I I don't know why we have 3DS at the top of this list. I think PlayStation should be on the top of this, but
spilt milk. You gotta roll with it, right?
I know, yeah.
No, I think the exclusive library kind of hints into what you said, and kind of to further what I said. Like, your stuff on PlayStation that's only on PlayStation is still only on PlayStation, maybe until later this year in Metal Gear Solid. But, like, you know, yes, there are Halos. Yes, there are Gears of Wars. A sequel to Fusion Frenzy, I think, is on 360, right?
Yes.
There's some, you know, there's some stuff, but you know, it's synonymous with Call of Duty. However, Call of Duty was on other consoles. Your Maddens also on other. You know, I think of those things as well when I think of Xbox, but they were playable other places. I think that's why I have the PlayStation above it. Is that exclusive library? That stuff that really only the PlayStation ever got.
Yeah, there's too much there that I think the 360 is great, and I think it is one of the essential consoles, but it doesn't climb above PlayStation.
All right, I'll take the L. I
You
don't
got
agree,
PS3
but
at the bottom of the list practically.
it is in the middle.
I may
Calm
put
down.
it there, to be honest. I don't know.
It's in the middle.
Dude, I need to rewind time back to when we did the first one. They've been all hopped up on black tea. I don't know.
Enjoy your load times.
Enjoy your patches.
I will.
It
Enjoy your bugs.
only gets better from here as we talk the successor of the Xbox 360, released in North America on November 22nd, 2013, the Xbox One. This was a platform I never wanted, actively mocked on this podcast many years ago, and pushed against, yet ended up buying and loving it when I did. At launch, it was a mess. The PlayStation 4 was the easy choice for me to make at the time. There were a few exclusive games that stood out as reasons to pick one up, yet I never jumped in until the One S was released. My brother found a Black Friday deal that got us each into one that had a bundle with the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5, all for under $150. So jumped in, got into Game Pass, and remained an active member until this year. It was the second half of the Xbox One that really captured my attention and excited me around the Xbox brand. And then subsequently, I got to go back and play a ton of 360 stuff that was made backwards compatible on this, and played even better than it did on 360 with, you know, different quality of life things they added, and not quality of life, but, you know, those, I guess a lot of that wouldn't come till Series X with the FPS boost and stuff, but yeah, all of those things.
I think the Xbox One is best known with its story, right? Like, I know, like, the pre-launch stuff has nothing to do with the actual console at the end of the day, but, like, that's a mess. It launches. Actually, when it launches, the real complaint is, why do I have to have a Kinect with this thing? That's like the last complaint, besides it being $100 more than a PlayStation 4. And then, you know, it takes a year. But remember, this thing wasn't backwards compatible either at the start. It took the following year, and then I think the year after that was when Xbox games started to be brought over. And it won that goodwill, and then like you say, or like you said, like Game Pass then begins its ascent to, I think, kind of the brand it is now, a very powerful kind of like play what you want to play. There's a huge library here. Oh, and hey, all of our day one stuff's going to be on it, so stay tuned. There's a bit of a regression on the controller, which will be a fault of Xbox going forward after the 360.
But those it did have the cool rumble in the left and right trigger, like the extra little, I don't know, I remember that being a thing.
They should have never just put it into the Xbox 360 controller, but yeah.
It happened. This launched with quite the lineup. Assassin's Creed 4, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Crimson Dragon, Dead Rising 3. I'm going to try and call it the big ones I remember, like Forza Motorsport 5, Killer Instinct. You remember Rise,
Killer
Son of
Instinct.
Rome?
Is Sunset, is it launch or a launch window?
Sunset Overdrive, I think, was 2015.
Oh, I was so
or
sorry.
maybe 2014. It was a bit after, but yeah, that was a big get too, being previously PlayStation exclusive developer Insomniac. Sunset Overdrive, which was previously featured on the Free Cheese podcast.
Right.
We all kind of waited because Mark, you waited until the 1X, right?
Is that all there is? Is the 1S or is there a 1X?
There's
X.
There's
yeah,
an
X. Yeah.
X.
Yeah, you got
yeah.
X. It was like the X
Yeah.
came out and then the S came out afterward.
No, I thought they were simultaneous.
Were they? Okay.
I waited
the
till
X was, it's like Pro before PlayStation 4 had a Pro. And then they did the S as a get rid of that bulky box.
It's not even that bulky. It's like it's like PS2 shaped.
I meant the original, or is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I meant the original.
Oh yeah, the original was ugly. That was
Yeah, the
not a
original was
good.
pretty big.
Never gloss your system.
I mean, not that we're like fingering the systems all the time, but it definitely.
PS3.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, the first PS3 model was very.
That was an era. Hey,
It was.
we grew past it.
Hell, even the Wii was polished.
Yeah, but the white didn't reflect the fingerprints so much. The Wii U and the black Wii, yeah. The 5 things, like when I was putting my notes together, I tried to just like, for all these consoles, I just like, what is my gut reaction to this console? Here's the 5 things I wrote down: Sunset Overdrive, Master Chief Collection, Rare Replay, backwards compatibility, Recore. And I had to think about Recore for a little bit.
I mean, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
I know.
a game.
Honestly, I think
but Master
Xbox
Chief
One
Collection doesn't even hit the sales. Like it was every opportunity to be great at launch, and it was terrible. And it took 2 years, 3 years to fix it.
Yeah.
By that time, I think the ship has sailed.
Here's the thing, though. Matt, you own a Series X.
Do.
Why'd you buy that?
Ranking. Game Pass machine.
But I mean, like, it was all because of this. Like, we all ended up eventually with 1X, 1S's because they did turn the ship around. There was enough, like, good stuff happening with the Xbox brand that it then led to us jumping into other things. Like, oh, we hit our time.
like...
Sorry.
Oh, is out of time?
No, it was time, but go ahead, Mark, final thought.
Like, it was good for its time, and it was because I didn't have a PC that was like my closest thing, and it was nice to relive my old account and get that back. So it was a nice trip down memory lane. But now I don't need it.
True. Well, 360 stuff.
I mean, yeah. Whatever it can play. I think that list is more limited versus what 360 can do with regular Xbox.
So this one... New number 15?
You're that low on it? That is. I was thinking like right above the Game Boy Color, right underneath PlayStation 3.
I just feel like my memories of this thing, my strongest, most like favorite memories of the Xbox One are playing 360 games on it.
I guess technically Halo Master Chief Collection is 360 games.
Like, yeah, the only that and like Game Pass, but Game Pass.
I'm just thinking Game Pass. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
but I don't think that puts it above the Vita for me. You know what I mean? Or the Game Gear.
That's
like,
fair. I think I played enough off a Game Pass though that like I remember it a little bit more fun. I don't know. Maybe trying to think what I played off a Game Pass. I remember The Witcher 3 being big during the pandemic.
That's fair. Like, there's a lot of those things that hit. We're kind of in the flip flop of the 360 thing, where PS4 became the main development platform, and Xbox One became the secondary.
Yeah, Call of Duty is now like not exclusive, but like getting exclusive content for PlayStation at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
I know putting it just above Virtual Boy seems low, but just in terms of like taking everything all together, right? Thinking about controller, peripherals, etc. Like, I don't know. I look at the Game Boy Pocket as much more interesting and unique consoles than the Xbox One.
I'm not going to argue anything. I'm down there in the pits of the boys.
Yeah, I would put it right above Virtual Boy. Because it was just my 360 machine, but 360 isn't supported. So that's the only reason, mostly why I had it. And I hate its UI.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
UI still just is not...
Has that poopy Windows 11 or Windows 10. Everything has to be a square everywhere.
It's not a great time. Weirdly, though, I am curious to see the other world where the Kinect actually was successful and stayed successful, and it became there's a
star of a
Don
Paranormal
Mattrick
Activity
was right.
movie.
And like it got to a point for me now where I don't even want to pay for Game Pass anymore because I just don't want to pay a monthly subscription. I'd rather have a one-time thing. So, but all those games are available on Steam. So I have no use for this system anymore. Other than
it's not really being developed for either anymore.
Yeah.
But like all those exclusives, like they're not. It's not that anymore. So.
All right,
like Recourse on Steam.
Yeah, no, yeah, that it's a lot of, and now anything coming out day and date as a launch title on the console is also on Windows. So we're gonna go back in time a little bit earlier than the Xbox One, right to the turn of the century, March 4th, 2000 in Japan, October 26th, 2000 in North America. Sony released PlayStation 2. Start our 6 minutes now.
This is their second best controller.
Ooh. Wait, what's their first best?
I'm a huge fan of the DualSense.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Battery life would argue with you, but all right, yeah. PS2 was the first console I remember feeling the true hype around. I was incredibly enthusiastic about the original and was 11 when the PS2 was launching, so it was the grown-ups console that I was ready to be a part of. It was what I felt like was being made just for me. It just also turned out to be made for like 80 million other people. It sold out very quickly, was difficult to obtain. I don't think we got one until the year after it was released because of that. My brother and I converted an old metal watch tin into a PS2 savings fund. We would sell our old systems, like Genesis and Nintendo were gone, Pokemon cards gone, so that we could make money and shove into this little watch tin. And we ultimately, I think, got a PS2 as a gift before we could even use the money to buy one.
Nice.
It kind of became the platform that had everything on it and more than I would ever and still can ever play. I remember it was the place to play the games I was interested in. It became the platform where we were all playing games. Like if you were talking about people about playing games, it was just inferred that obviously you were talking about PS2 games. It was the era where video games kind of brought the next stage of 3D gaming. I think innovation was seemingly constant, yet games had yet to reach a level of standardization where everything kind of felt and played the same. Because we did hit that point, I think, where like you just kind of know that this button does that and this button does that because it's just this common knowledge. But this was like, we're still figuring it out. Sometimes they're not going to use the right stick for camera. You're going to have to use the trigger buttons for camera control. Like, all over the place in terms of that, but it's still great. And I still look for games that feel like they were made in this era. We've, I think, affectionately and appropriately coined the PS2 game moniker for good games that feel good to play, but don't necessarily mean they were released on a PS2. This was the jam. We were all in on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember kids skipping school to get a PS2.
Yeah.
And my brother was one of them.
For what game?
We had a couple right away. I don't know. I remember having Driver 3. I remember having MTV Music Generator 2.
Oh yeah.
I remember having Tekken Tag.
Yes.
And was GTA 3 a launch game?
It was the year after. It was 2000.
October
after.
22nd, 20.
Okay. So then it might have been
2000.
just those at the time, along with whatever PS1 games we still had lying around and whatever. And it was our DVD player
Yes.
in that house. Yep, nothing but fun memories with this. It's personally probably my all-time favorite console.
Yeah, I think on the whole, it's hard to top.
It was it also came at a point in my life where I was discovering all sorts of games and playing stuff I've never even thought to have even played before. It opened up to me to be a little open-minded, trying different genres. It introduced so much, and it did such a big leap from where it came from. So it's like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, impactful console to me. And I come from a Nintendo household, even though I love the GameCube and everything, this is like the one for me.
Yeah, I mean the library speaks for itself. As far as other features though, yeah, we still have a memory card. That's like this one probably slight against this competition, but
Sure.
we get a little online here. It's not the same infrastructure as live, but you could play Madden. That was my first foray into online gaming. I was playing Madden first, but then later I finally I borrowed SOCOM from I think my cousin and was playing SOCOM online as well. It was nuts. But yeah, this library. I mean, it includes the two Metal Gear Solid games, 2 and 3. 3 specifically the subsistence version. It's my favorite Metal Gear Solid game.
The best Tony Hawk games on this platform.
Some very good Tony Hawk games are on that platform.
NBA Street.
The most feature-rich like Maddens and NCAA footballs and all this other stuff are on this console. Gosh,
Our hero started here.
Much. Yes.
PsyOps, the Mindgate conspiracy.
Sure, yeah, we can throw that one on there.
Trying to look back
the Jack and Daxter series is on here. I think Burnout's on Xbox too, right? But I think
But I mean, Grand Theft Auto alone.
Right. Yes, that's where I was leading up to here.
Even though it's a third one in the series, but between that and San Andreas and Vice City, 3 Grand Slams on one system.
Yeah, there's a reason why they sell you that pack.
And so quick back to back. It was 2001, 2, and 4, I think, for those 3 games. They were. Yeah.
And Rockstar's still making other stuff too at the same time. They're still making good games. Bully, isn't I never played, but the Warriors is on here. Is it Rockstar's famous table tent? Is that this or is that 360?
That was 360.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
I mean, that club's still around.
PS2 port.
Yeah.
I think did I already say did I already say the Jack and Daxter games out loud, or did I say it in my head?
Yes.
I think
Okay.
you said them, yeah.
No, you did. Twisted
oh,
Metal Black.
Silent Hill 2 is stuck on this console, like the best way to play it, because isn't all his other shit broke?
Yeah.
Wait, for which game?
Silent Hill 2 isn't like all his ports
yeah,
like weird.
unless you do like that PC mod thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like authentically, it's that. And Silent Hill 3 is on there. There's a lot of good horror games on this system.
Yeah, Siren and
Rule of Rose.
oh yeah.
A lot of
Persona 4
rare games in here.
Yeah, no, it's stocked. It's stocked is saying it lightly.
And then you had like the slim PS2 that would come out. Didn't need it, but we got it anyway.
Yeah.
I would argue that as someone that had the Fat Boy, the
internet capability,
the online stuff was baked into that one. Yeah.
Right. I didn't use it a lot, but yes, definitely.
Well, we hit time a long time ago. I just didn't call it because we needed to talk about the PS2. The pressure sensitivity on the face buttons and the
right, yeah, because that doesn't even go the ends there.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have.
That's wild.
It's a cool feature. PlayStation 2. Are we all good with this at number 1?
That's where I'm heading.
Absolutely.
Just move all these down.
I feel sorry for everything else that's following.
It's interesting though. We've got PS2 was an easy top of the list. I remember when we talked Wii last episode, Mark pointed out like, well, Wii Sports is at the number 1 on our, thefreecheese.com/the list in terms of games. So but it's weird that Wii doesn't fall right there. But like, it is weird that we don't have a PS2 game yet that has crowned or taken the crown from Wii Sports. Maybe season like 12 we chase that.
Yeah, I feel like it was purposely avoided, maybe to try more interesting things.
The old school Hall of Fame might have a few contenders on there.
Next year, it's just gonna be nothing but PS2 games now.
Had a lot of spoilers for the rest of season 11. Yeah, we got a few more platforms to talk here. By a few, I mean 3. All right, let's do this. Next up is the Bandai released only in Japan handheld video game console, the WonderSwan.
It's always.
When did you first learn about the WonderSwan?
So when we first were putting together this console ranking segment stuff, not the second one per se, but the first one.
You'd never heard of it before then?
No.
Love that.
No.
Mark?
I heard about it when I was in high school, because back then I was really, really into making sprite comics. So there'd be websites where they would rip video game sprites, and they would separate them by